Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just a few things down.
You don't need to on, do you?
No, that's fine. My name's Danny, and as Rob has said, I've been through this program. And look what happened. Look what comes at the other end. I actually came through it. Someone asked me the other week in one of these talks of how did it benefit, how did my heart attack and everything benefit? And I said, well, my hair started growing again. So there's hope for someone. I had my heart event in July, 3 years ago, July 2007. I went through this program as a result of my heart attack. And as Rob was talking about, quite a few issues to do with depression and sadness and feeling sorry for yourself, motivation, lack of motivation. I went through all of that. And I've got to say, I still go through some of it from time to time. Sometimes things aren't clear cut. Sometimes things don't start, stop, finish something. Sometimes things are a continuation of what the past has been. And I will live with my heart attack for the rest of my life, as I'll try and explain to you in a few minutes. One of the first things I try and talk about when I speak to groups like this is I try and talk from my point of view, what I went through and how I got myself over the humps. It's very easy for someone to come up and lecture, but at the end of the day, we have to want to make the changes ourselves. We've got to recognise what the issues are, we've got to recognise what we may have been doing wrong, and we need to recognise what we need to do to get better and to forget the bad things and get on with the good things. I do drink a bit because I have ongoing issues as a result of my heart attack. I also have ongoing shortness of breath. You will have learned, I believe, by this stage that there are certain key indicators about a heart attack or what may lead on to a heart event. And I learned all of this purely by coming here. I'd heard about bits and pieces along the way, as many of us will, and Heart Foundation, I see there's something up there for Heart Foundation, are now running heaps of information on TV and radio. Many people, anyone here seen some of the advertisements?
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be part of the Heart Foundation launch on the Gold Coast earlier this year. And when I do start my talks, I usually use these two statements. My heart attack was the best thing that happened to me. If it wasn't for my heart attack, I would be dead now. Quite frankly, if I would have been living the way I was living, I wouldn't have had a heart attack. I would have just gone straight through it and I'd be 6 foot under. So the heart attack was a wake-up call for me. And I think for many of you here, it may very well be the case. Briefly, I'll just go over this very quickly. I had a major heart attack. I had 29 resuscitations. I had 3 stents put into the right side main artery, 100% blockage. And I ended up having a triple bypass on the left side where I had 3 major disease vessels, terminology that I picked up from the cardiologist. Basically, I had 80, 40 and 20% blockage on the left side. I joined the Zipper Club. Some of you may have, some of you may not have. And I've had to live with that and continue to live with that after the event. I've now had to recognise what I was doing wrong and work towards repairing it and doing something about it. This is a whiteboard. Since I started doing these talks, which I've been doing now for close to 2.5 years, I thought things are easy to me when I can come up with acronyms. As I was saying before, there's probably 5 key indicators about why we ended up having a heart event. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll have all of them. You may not have any of them, but there are things called stress, exercise, which Rob was talking about again, diet, alcohol. I'm a teacher, that's why my writing's so bad. And cigarettes. I can't talk about you, I don't know you, but I can talk about me. At the time of my heart attack, big time, always been a stressor. That's me, that's been my life. I had a failed marriage involving 6 children over 18 years ago. Never could cope with it, live with it to today, but now manage the situation a lot better than I was doing prior to my heart attack. And I have good relations with my kids, so it's not an issue. So I could tick stress off as a precursor to my having a heart attack. Exercise. At the time I was working as a courier. I've got a teaching background, but for whatever reason I was working as a courier. I was working 6.5 days a week. I was working 70 to 80 hours a week. And I thought, because I was lifting, carrying, going in and out of my van and walking up the steps and what have you, I used to think that that was my exercise for the week, and heaps of it each day. I learned here there's a big difference between work-related activity, which is what I was doing, and physical exercise in a planned activity where I would be getting my heart and my cardiovascular system going. So I was not doing exercise, I was doing an activity. Diet. How many people here have ever worked on the road, driving?
I don't know.
How many would know what it's like to eat while we're working 10, 12 hours on the road? Forget the stress of driving on the road. My wife would pack me vegetables and a whole meal sandwich, Vegemite or honey or whatever. But if you started at 6 o'clock, I can tell you the good stuff is finished by 10 o'clock. The next best thing after 10 o'clock becomes McDonald's, Hungry Jack's, KFC, or something of that kind. That's a fact of life when you're driving on the road. And I think most people would understand what I'm saying if you've been a driver or a courier or a truck driver or something like that. Alcohol. Never been a drinker. I had my social drink, so that was never going to be a concern for me. Oh yeah, cigs. I don't know how many here smoked before their heart event. Anyone going to put up their hands? Well, I was smoking 40 to 50 a day. Couple that with being on the road, couple that with no exercise, couple that with the crappy food I was eating. I was a heart attack or a heart event waiting to happen. And it doesn't matter what you may have been seeing. In my case, I was bulletproof, as Rob mentioned. You know, a lot of us think, especially men, think we're bulletproof. We're on the road, we're walking and carrying boxes. We can't get sick. We can have a cigarette every 10 minutes. It's not going to affect us until it does affect us. The day of my heart attack, at that time I was doing the pathology run between Gold Coast Hospital and Royal Brisbane Hospital. That was part of my run, my work. 3 hours before my heart attack, I was on the M1 returning from Brisbane, having just done a pathology run. 3 hour difference between being on the road and having a heart attack. What would have happened if I'd had the heart attack on the M1 3 hours earlier? Luck, pure luck. As was the fact that we had an ambulance station built there, down the road from us in Nerang, and it only opened up less than a year before my heart attack. Ambulance people were able to get there within 3 minutes, and they said that was the difference. More luck. The cath lab, most of you would have been through the cath lab, I take it, up at Gold Coast Hospital. Well, that place had only opened up about 18 months before my heart event, or my heart attack. As I was told later, if that didn't exist at that time, there was no time to get me to PA or to Prince Charles. In fact, you know, so there were a sequence of events that happened, and I can now reflect on that and say, well, those events happened, and I now want to do something with it, and I've changed my life. And this is where it comes back to you who have been through it. I decided to change my life and be proactive and try and do something more positive. I freely admit I wallowed for a while. Ah, boy, woe is me. Woe is me. Why did I live? Why did I survive? I would break down when I was having my shower. I could not look at my cracked chest. It was even worse. The first couple of weeks, or first week or 10 days, I can't remember, it still had the white bandage on top. And it was the waterproof ones. Any people here had bypass surgery? So you'll know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That was bad enough, knowing that there was a piece of cloth covering something that was underneath it. Even worse, because I'm a big, strong, macho man, and I was 54 at the time, going into the shower and having to have your wife sort of help you get in, and with the plastic chair that we rigged up in our bathroom for my purposes. And then how many, well, maybe not many of you, but how many had to put those, what do you call those stockings?
Teds.
The which?
Teds.
Teds, those thick, not thicker, but very tight-fitting stockings. Did you have a partner or a wife or someone to do it for you?
Yeah.
Did you? That is one of the most god-awful jobs that you can imagine having to do, especially if you've just had your chest cracked open and then you've got to bend down. In my case, I had it on 2 legs and you've got to put 2. And all these things are in my mind. Why did I survive my heart attack? Do I need to be like this? And I'm thinking I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life because that's the state of mind I'm in. You get caught up in the moment that you forget that this is just a stage, and with a bit of effort, and this is before I'd started doing the cardio rehab, I must say, because we'd started it, I think it's 4 weeks after, in my case, it was 4 weeks after I had my surgery. So you left, and that's an issue that I think maybe needs to be addressed. How? I don't know, but there's that 4-week window, in my case, between having had the event and then starting to get back onto a positive platform which these great people provide here. And I say quite openly and unabashed that these are the greatest people that you'll ever come across. Anyone who's been through a heart event, these are the unsung heroes, the same as the ones in the public hospital and the paramedics. Enough praise, Rob. That's enough for that. So I went through, and some of you may have gone through it, or you may not have gone through it, a period of limbo between having had the heart attack and not wanting to face the reality of having had it, and being at home on my own with my wife, who's then had to take off time from working as a cashier. She wasn't getting paid. I then had a situation where we couldn't pay the mortgage because my $1,500 plus a week income had gone to zero. I'd arranged with the banks to get a 3-month, whatever you call it, deferment, but that was only putting off the inevitable. Then having to put the house onto the market, then getting ripped off by a real estate agent. I hope there's no real estate agents here. So there was only, what was going on at the time was a sequence of negative events. Getting back on my feet and exercising at that stage, well, I could barely walk. I had an infection in my right leg where the scar tissue didn't want to heal properly. I had a psychological block here that I'm questioning why I'm here. And I'm going through negatives like, how am I going to pay the mortgage, which I can't. My wife's off work, we're not earning any money. We're getting a bit of family help. I'll try and do this very quickly. So I ended up coming here. I got to tell you, the first day that I came here was probably the worst experience I've ever had. You got to remember, I'm coming here with negative thoughts. I'm coming here because my wife and my mother had come up to visit, have told me I've got to do this. I didn't come because I wanted to come. I came for other people, not for me. Big mistake. I start on one of my first days here, and I'm, as I said, 54, and I'm still tight here. I've got an infection raging in my right leg. I'm wearing these god-awful socks which I cannot stand, and I'm literally hobbling along like this. And around the corner I'm seeing this, what I would call a 75 or 80-year-old lady, and I find out she's also had bypass surgery. And she's had very similar, not maybe as complicated, but she's had bypass surgery. And I'm saying, how the hell could she be doing that at 85, or whatever she was? And I broke down. I just lost it. I just was ready to walk out. To Sharon's credit, she spent time with me, told me, look, this is, you know, as Rob was saying, we're going through lows. We're having problems accepting some of this, and I was. And in my mind, I said, there's no friggin' way I'm coming back here on Thursday. So I went home, my wife picked me up. My wife did the right thing and encouraged me. Sharon did the right thing and talked to me. And I came back on the Thursday, and over time, I started to pick myself up. But there were still incidents here which affected my negativity. And one in particular was, we were doing, and I can't remember whether it was with the social worker or the psychologist or whoever, we were doing a round, sitting around table situation, and whoever was coordinating that particular day was saying, and where were you when you had your heart attack, and where would you want to be in 3 or 6 months' time? An elderly gentleman, I was on the golf course, I was playing golf, I was on the 6th tee and I collapsed. Where would you like to be in 3 to 6 months? I want to be able to finish 18 holes. Lady, I was on the tennis court, I was in the middle of my first set, I collapsed. Where would you like to be in 3 to 6 months' time? At least be able to finish a couple of sets of tennis. Then he gets up, and he's negative, he's raging negativity. He's walking, he's watching around the room, everyone is talking about what obviously was a situation where financially it's not a worry. They can get back onto the tennis course, they can get back onto the golf course or what have you. Then he gets up, where were you? Well, I've just come home from doing a hospital run. A couple of hours later I have a heart attack. I was making a bed with my wife. Where would you want to be in 3 or 6 months' time? It's all negative. I want to be driving, I can't, because I'll never get a professional license again, because I'm also diabetic. I've just had a heart situation. So where are you going to be in 3 to 6 months' time? And I'm getting up there saying, I haven't got a clue, because it's still all negative. But with more time and more effort and my ability to get back into exercise, and I cannot stress hard and long enough the importance of exercise, I was able to start get into a positive frame of mind. And it took time. I'm not saying that I came out of here 100%, fixed, because I didn't. But I was able to face a lot more of my demons. And this is something people can talk to you about, but you who have been through that event have got to come to terms with yourself. You can sometimes do it on your own, and you can sometimes not do it on your own. But whatever you do, you must never ever take it out on your partner, spouse, child, family member, whoever's around you all the time. In my case, my wife, helping. Because in feeling sorry for ourselves, we forget that those around us, our loved ones, are trying to help us and support us, and it's not fair if we start loading on them all our internal crap. And I've been there. At one stage, I've never been one for therapists. It's not me. Remember, I'm macho. I can take care of myself. But there came a time that I ended up going to see one of the social workers that came here. Picked up, I think I did it through Sharon. I got the phone number, picked up the phone, made an appointment. Cost me nothing, went to the clinic. It wasn't so much that I needed therapy or that sort of thing. It was I needed to be able to offload. I needed to get the frustrations in my system out. And as Rob said, a third-party, objective person who doesn't know you from a bar of soap will not be offended and will not take offence that maybe you saying some things which are not politically correct, and even using a few choice swear words, which I'm prone to do from time to time. But she, in that case, understood where I was coming from, and it was like a pressure release. I was able to get off my head, out of my head, frustrations. Now, I still see that person. In fact, I saw her only about 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But I picked up the phone and said, hi, I won't mention names. And I sent her an email. I said, why don't we get together for a coffee? And there's a great coffee shop across the road from where her practice is. And I just go with you and have a yarn. Because sometimes, as Rob was saying, it's easier to talk to someone who doesn't know you, and you're liable and more willing to say things because you're not so fearful of offending someone, and you'll say it to someone, and then that reflection back from the person will either enforce what you're doing as being correct, or maybe you'll be a bit more prone to accepting a bit of criticism because it's coming from someone who's not a family member. Because I would think many people are like me. I can't stand being criticised by my wife or my family. Let a professional maybe suggest an alternate way of doing things, fine. But if my wife tells me to take that route to get to the supermarket and I prefer to go that way, I get really annoyed. Because that's me. I don't want my wife telling me what to do. I've got to finish off. The biggest things you've got to understand is you've got to get yourself into a positive frame of mind. How did I do that? 6 months after my event, I enrolled at TAFE, and I went back into doing a TESOL. I re-qualified. I'm a teacher by training, but I re-qualified to teach English as a second language. I'm an eBay instructor and re-qualified, got a second teaching qualification to teach eBay, so people who want to learn how to sell and buy on eBay, I can teach them. 2 years ago, I got asked by Cardiac Rehab to get involved with creating a heart support group for people like ourselves. As Rob said, 6 weeks here is well and good, But it doesn't stop here. Some people need ongoing support, encouragement, education, information. Some will do fine on their own, but there are others who will need some support. Heart Support was created. We run a number of programs, including a weekly walk for those of you who are less motivated. Social, purely social, but it's a walking activity down here at Broadbeach Waters, excuse me. I'm more involved in the education programs, and I'm now getting programs off the ground with both Griffith and Bond University, and I'm trying to develop relationships between Heart Support, our group, and Heart Foundation. But that's me, that's my bent in life. The point I'm making is if you used to be a gardener, get back into gardening and love it. It's the best time of the year to get into the garden. If you like to surf, and I've got to tell you, I tried that last year after a 30-odd years absence. I nearly drowned. I didn't realise how unfit. I've got an issue because I've lost 10-12% function of the heart, and I have stamina issues. But again, I thought after all the walking I've been doing and exercise, I could surf with a surfboard. I can't. So I now body surf. So I adapt. But I've gone back to the surf, which is something I grew up with and I love. We and you will only get better if we find something to get involved with and be positive about. And if you have any questions, you've got fantastic staff here, both when you finish the program and afterwards. They will help you and point you in the right direction. The last thing I would say is, if most of you will have been given a pack like that when you left hospital,
Yeah.
I always keep this handy. God forbid something happens to me and I'm at home on my own, I have to call the ambulance. At least it's easy for the ambulance people to find. I've got a number of issues, so I have heaps of medication. So that's blown up. I keep my medications in my wallet. Again, God forbid something happens, I'm on the road or in a shopping centre. Paramedics tend to go to a wallet to try and check out who you are and what you might be on. And the other thing is, if you haven't heard about it, is ICE with your mobile phones. ICE in case of emergency. If you could put those 3 letters before your wife, husband, spouse, carer, child, son, that means if a paramedic finds you and you're in a state where you can't converse, they may go to your phone book, they may go to the address book in your phone. This is now an international standard. And if they see the letters ICE, they'll know that that person is the person to contact, since you're not able to talk at that point in time. I've actually got 3 people, so I've got ICE 1, ICE 2, ICE 3, my wife and my brother, so that there's a sequence in case one's not contactable. I could talk for more, but I can't, running out of time, so thank you very much.
Danny will be here for those people that have done the 8:45 class. You're going to be here for a minute?
Yeah, another 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, Danny will be here, but for the people who are doing the 11 o'clock exercise, can we just
All right.